Segments from Life in the Arts can now be viewed on demand on youtube.com. Just go to youtube.com, add /longtimers, and that will take you to our YouTube channel. Welcome to another edition of Life in the Arts Classic Light. Life in the Arts is a program that your entire family can participate in and enjoy. On today's show, we spend an entire half hour with Terrence Farrell, who presents a music-filled lesson on the guitar and its history. And now to introduce Terrence Farrell, the host of Life in the Arts Live, Maya Carroll.
Terrence Farrell is one of the most sought-after classical guitarists. He has won international acclaim for his guitar concerts, television appearances, recordings, original compositions, and guitar master classes. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to Terrence Farrell, who is going to give us a concert and lesson today.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the guitar. Now, we've all seen electric guitars used in rock bands, and they're usually very thin, and they probably aren't shaped like this very much at all, and they usually have a line that goes out to an amplifier that makes the sound for them. And we've seen guitars used in country and western bands. Some of them look like this, some of them are quite a bit larger. And then we've all seen guitars used in mariachi bands, and those guitars look exactly like this. Now, those three guitars, this is the father of them all. This is called the classical guitar. It's also called the Spanish guitar. So I'd like to start with the Spanish work today. Not that it has to do with the bullfights. Not that I enjoy bullfighting. I don't. But it has a lot of what we call the Spanish spirit in it. And it has a lot of what we call passion and things of that sort. Now, it starts off with a fanfare. Now, normally, if we were in a toreo and was looking at a bullfight, we would see it done with, the fanfare is done with the trumpets. But here it'll be done a la flamenco style, very brassy sort of sound. And then after that, we'll hear the march of the matadors as they parade around the arena. And then the music is going to get real soft. We'll call that contemplative. And then that's the duel under the sun, the fight between the bull and the matador. And then we're going to hear that first theme again, the march of the matadors, a very aristocratic march as they march around the arena. And then another fanfare at the end. So this is called At the Bullfights. Well, we're going to go back into history a little bit right now and go back into American history as well. And I want us to start with, we have a holiday in the fall, Thanksgiving. Now, who can tell me why we have Thanksgiving? A little bit about the Pilgrims and the Indians. Remember why? Have something to do, yeah? Rochelle?
I don't want to say no.
Okay, now if we go back that far and we think about it, what happened was that the Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower, and they had a very rough time that very first winter, and the Indians, the Native Americans, helped them learn how to grow corn and how to cook a turkey. And so that fall that they were very thankful because now they had some harvests, a bountiful harvest, so they shared their food with the Indians. And not only that, they shared music. Now the Pilgrims brought music with them from Europe, from England. And this is one of those pieces that you would have heard at that very first Thanksgiving. Now this next piece is so famous, it's been used 3 times. First, it's known as a Pilgrim song. It's a holiday song called What Child Is This? And most famous of all, it's known as the song Greensleeves. So if we were at one of these very first Thanksgiving dinners, this is one of the songs that we would have heard. Let's now the guitar, a little bit about the guitar. The guitar is about the same age as the American Revolution. That's to say, it came into being about the late 1700s. This is about the time of George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. And in music, it was a time of music that we call the classical period of music, and they call this the classical guitar, and it's kept that name ever since. Now, if we were back in the times of George Washington or Benjamin Franklin and we went to a dance, number one, we wouldn't have called it a dance, we would have called it a ball. So this is kind of music that those people in the pictures, this is the type of the music they played and danced to. This is called a minuet. Now, about that same time as they were dancing the minuet back on the east coast of what became the United States was the first time that European settlers came right here to Monterey County to what's been called Alta, California. Now, those first immigrants, European immigrants, came from Spain, and from Spain they came to went to Mexico, and from Mexico they came up here. And they established the mission chains, the one down in Soledad and the one over in Carmel. Have you been to the missions? Somewhere along the line here? Well, they brought the guitar with them, because the guitar is what we say is a very portable instrument. They could put it on their back, they could put it on their horse, or they could carry it in their wagon. Now, when they came, they had a very different music style than the music pieces that we've just been listening to. Now, when they went to a dance, if we went to one of their dances today, we might call them a fiesta, but in those days the dances were called fandangos. So if we went to one of the missions or one of the big ranches around here to one of their fandangos, we would also hear a music called a fandango. So this is one of the early pieces from that Spanish section or that Spanish era in ancient California, a fandango from early Monterey. Thank you. Thanks. Now, a little bit after that time is when we had these great, what we call these great migrations across America, these big wagon trains that came west. Now, half the trains came west to California during the era called what we call the 49ers. They came out in search of gold. And another group, major train route, went to Oregon and to the northwest then. So they were the Oregon Trail and then the 49ers. Now they came in these big wagon trains and they brought the guitar with them too. Now the type of music they played was very different from the various styles we've played so far. Now out of that type of music, not only did they use it to accompany themselves singing, but they also used it just to listen to the music by itself instrumentally. Now we could say that much music evolved into country music, Western music. As a guitarist, we would say finger-picking music, and as a broader term, we might even just use the word folk music. So this is one of those sort of pieces. This piece is called Travelin' On. Thank you. Thanks. Now, I know you're home study students, but do you know what show and tell is? Okay, show and tell where you come to school and if you went to school and present what the sort of things you did at home for your other classmates. Well, when I was in 3rd grade, my family moved to a new town and I saw show and tell for the first time. And one of the things that happened is a friend of mine from school named Tommy, he brought his guitar and he played it for the rest of us. And I thought it was just the coolest thing, the guitar. So I asked Tommy if he would teach me how to play the guitar and he said he would. So I said, okay, what do we learn first? And he says, well, the first thing you're going to do is learn how to play a melody. And I said, well, what's a melody? And he said, well, a melody is a part of a song you sing like Happy Birthday. And I said, okay, what do we do first? And he says, well, first you have to learn the ABCs of music. You have to learn how to play the notes. And he said, well, how you're going to do that, for an example, is you're going to take one finger and you're going to put it behind one of these metal bars. These are called frets. And you put your finger very carefully behind one of those frets with your left hand. And then with your right hand, you are going to pluck that string and you're going to get a tone or a note. And if we put our finger on a different fret of that string and pluck it, you'll get a different tone, a different note, and a different string, a different note. So first I learned how to play the notes, and then I learned how to play the melody. And that's a melody in the higher notes. We call those the treble notes. Now you could also play melodies in very low notes. We call those bass notes, and we learned to play melodies down there. How to play melodies all over the guitar. And then a couple of months later, there was another of my classmates, and he was sitting under a tree after school, and he wasn't playing one note at a time. He wasn't playing a melody. He had lots of fingers on the strings, and he kept moving around, putting them in different formations. So I asked my friend Tommy what he was doing, and he said he's playing harmony. He's playing the chords. And I said, well, what's harmony? He says, well, harmony is hard to explain, but he says harmony supports the melody and makes it sound better, or it actually even makes the melody sound right. And I said, oh, well, can we learn how to play chords? Can we learn how to play the harmony? He said, sure, the guitar can do that. And he said, sometimes you might only need one finger on a string, and you strum a lot of strings, and it'll sound right. It says sometimes you'll need 2 fingers on the strings, and sometimes 3, and sometimes 4. But what you're going to do is you're going to put your finger very carefully behind a fret on one string, and maybe another finger very carefully behind the fret on another string, and maybe another finger very carefully on even another string. And if you're very careful, they're clear. So we're going to have formations, and some of these formations are going to sound better together than others. And sometimes we can put a finger across all our strings and play up the neck. But he said, you know, chords by themselves aren't going to do you any good unless you learn rhythm. And I said, well, what's rhythm? He says, well, rhythm's the beat. And he said, sometimes you can use the same chords, change the beat, and you'll have a totally different piece of music. And here's an example. I'm going to use these chords in these next 2 songs, and I'm going to change the rhythm, but the chords are going to be the same. Does that sound like La Bamba? Okay, and here we go again. Same chords, different rhythm. Think, what is that song? And all your parents will know that's a song called Wild Thing. So by just changing the rhythm, we have changed and used the same chords, and we've created a totally new, different piece of music. Now, after a while, just just strumming around, as much fun as it was, is kind of like, I hear them doing some different things like in country music, and he says country western music. He says, well, they're probably doing more a finger picking style, and the first thing you do when you're learning that style is we're going to separate the thumb from the chord. So the thumb is going to play the bass notes, the low notes, and with the chord, we're going to pluck the rest of the chords. So instead of just strumming a D chord, we're going to play the thumb and then the chord. You've all heard stuff like this. And that was a lot more interesting. And then you're going to want to learn how to play bass runs. You can hear that in country music all the time. And a bass run is where you take the notes in the bass between one chord and connect it to the next chord. So it would have a lot more fun. I was starting to get really good there, and he said, well, what are we going to do next? And he said, if you're going to really do finger picking, then we're going to have to play with our fingers individually, plucking the strings. We call those arpeggios. It's even a hard name, arpeggios. And an arpeggio is a chord played one note at a time. So instead of this, listen carefully, we're going to separate the notes. And I think, well, that was really a lot of fun. Can we play the harmony and melody at the same time? Now, that's very few instruments can both play harmony and melody at the same time. Now, this comes from a very famous song from our American South called House of the Rising Sun. Thank you. Okay. Now there are just a few other items that we could call specialty effects on the guitar. One is called harmonics, and a harmonic is a bell tone. So if we were doing Happy Birthday instead of, if we were doing it with harmonics, it would sound. Harmonics, that's one. And another one is a tambour, as in a tambourine. You know what a tambourine is? You know, it has bangles on the side and usually has a drum head, and you pound it with the side of your hand. Now, the tambour effect on the guitar is the same sort of thing. We're going to play it close to what's this. This is called the bridge, and we'll hear something like this. And there's another effect that you hear every once in a while, and it's pretty neat, and you could probably tell what this one is. So, and that's called the drum effect, or more like actually a snare drum. So those are three different effects that are specialty effects on the guitar, but very effective. Now I'm going to end with a piece here, and this last piece I'm going to play everything we've talked about so far. We're going to have melodies and harmony, we're in chords. The melodies are going to be in the bass and in the treble, chords, arpeggios, all mixed up and put together and re-put together in different formations. Now when Tommy and I were playing guitar together, we often like to play the themes from music from films that we went and saw. Now this is from a film that I bet everyone in this room has seen. So try to think about what the name of the film was, and I'll ask you about it at the end. So here we go. Thank you. Thanks.